Good morning, sir. Sir, I have a important. Good morning, sir. Sir, I have a request, sir. Sir, one vehicle with the registration number PY01 BR5591 has been wrongly parked. We got a request from IIT security staff. Would request the invitee to kindly remove the car from the location, sir. Sir, PY. and please requested to take the seat. Thank you. So, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Commander Vikram Singh, Officer in Charge, Naval Construction Wing, IIT Delhi, the premier institute for training naval architect officers of the Indian Navy. We at Naval Construction Wing strive our best in academic and outdoor training, and our motto, "May what we create be the best in the world," amplifies our vision. With that note, let us begin today's proceedings. At the outset, I take this opportunity to welcome you all at the 19th Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture. We start the session with our traditional song, Poth Shilpkar, a song that reflects the aspirations of a naval architect. The song will be presented by the Naval Architect student officers undergoing their PG DIT course at IIT Delhi. This song was composed by Commander K.K. Verma, former officer in charge at Naval Construction Wing, who is present amongst us today. Poth Shilpkar.
जिसकी दोनों बाहुओं में खेलता समुद्र है, जिसके पग सदा पखारता महासमुद्र है, अजस्त्र जल प्रवाह ही, अजस्त्र जल प्रवाह ही है, जिसकी धमनियों में भी उस अपने देश हिंद को नमन हजार है। हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है। लगन है एक बांध दे समुद्र को कृतित्व से, जो तल अतल में चल अचल हो सेतु बंद सा सजे, बनाए ऐसे पोत हम, बनाए ऐसे पोत हम कि जग में अपना मान हो, जल यातायात भी बढ़े और युद्ध में भी शान हो। भारत की जल समृद्धि के, भारत की जल समृद्धि के हम कर्णधार हैं। हम पोत शिल्पकार हैं, हम पोत शिल्पकार हैं, हम पोत शिल्पकार हैं, हम पोत शिल्पकार हैं, हम पोत शिल्पकार हैं। विनम्र किंतु दृढ़ प्रतिज्ञ आज हम ये प्रण करें, कि हर शरण में श्रेष्ठता का ही सदा वरण करें। क्षमता कभी न व्यर्थ हो, क्षमता कभी न व्यर्थ हो, हम सब में ये सामर्थ्य हो कि आने वाली पीढ़ियां भी होनहार है। हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है, हम पोत शिल्पकार है।
May I now request Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh, the Chief Guest, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Speaker of the Day, Professor Rangan Banerjee, Director IIT Delhi, Rear Admiral M. Nirmal Menon, DG ND SDG, and Professor Sanjeev Sanghi, Head Department of Applied Mechanics, to kindly take their seats on stage. May I now request Head Department of Applied Mechanics to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh, Controller of Warship Production and Acquisition, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Secretary Shipping and Speaker of the Day, Professor Rangan Banerjee, Director IIT Delhi, flag officers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you all. It gives me a great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to this August gathering today at 19th Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture being organized in the memory of late Commodore Ved Prakash Garg, the first uniformed officer of the Corps of Naval Architects. At the outset, I take this opportunity to mention that we are delighted to have amongst us today Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Secretary at Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Speaker of the Day. And I would like to thank you for accommodating our request and delivering the Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture session. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh, CWP&A, Indian Navy, for having consented to be the chief guest and for honoring us by presiding over this commemorative event. I would like to convey my earnest appreciation to Professor Rangan Banerjee, Director IIT Delhi, and thanks to each and every one of you assembled here today for having taken time off your busy schedule, especially on a Saturday, to make to the 19th Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture and making it a success. It is the first time that the ladies of the Naval Construction Fraternity are a part of the Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture session. Our maritime vision is a collective effort and requires shared efforts for guaranteed success. We are proud to welcome the ladies in our endeavor of prosperous and developed maritime India. There is another first for us, for the Department of Applied Mechanics as well as the Naval Construction Wing this year. There is the Distinguished Alumni Award for the year 2022 includes Rear Admiral G.K. Harish. Admiral Harish from PGDIIT batch of 1989 is the first alumni of Applied Mechanics Department to receive this coveted distinction. It is indeed a proud moment for NCW and the Applied Mechanics Department. A word about the Naval Construction Wing at IIT Delhi. Naval Construction Wing at IIT Delhi is a unique joint collaborative model of Defence Academia partnership, which has been in existence since 1977 at IIT Delhi. And from the IIT Delhi side, one of the person who laid the foundation stone for this program is in the audience here, Professor R.C. Malhotra. A warm welcome to you, sir. Over the last 5 decades, the annual intake of student officers of NCW has grown from single digits to 30. And more than 650 naval architects have graduated under this program over the past 45 years. And their work is for all to see. Some of the models of the ships which you have seen, which are outside, these have all been indigenously developed by the naval architects who and we are proud that they are alma mater of our department and of our institute. I must compliment the team NCW for organizing this lecture, something which many thought would not have been possible. In fact, we are having this now after a break of almost 10 years. And this event is also being streamed live on IIT Delhi YouTube channel for benefit of those who could not join us personally. Shipping in India plays a very important role because of our vast coastline of about 7,500 kilometers, 13 major ports and several minor ports. The shipping industry plays a central role in our country's international trade and commerce. The warship building industry is equally significant for the role it has to play in developing the defense establishment capable of not only protecting our vast coastline, but also capable of making a strategic impact in the global scenario. Therefore, the pursuance of indigenous ship design and shipbuilding capabilities, both of naval and mercantile use, is essential for our self-reliance, economic growth, and development of our nation. The art of designing and building warship is an extremely challenging structural and material engineering evolution. Nothing has the complexity, impact, size, and sheer force of a fighting vessel, nor can many things capture the imagination in quite the same way. A glorious tradition of professional excellence and meritorious performance in warship building and repair has ensured sustained availability of state-of-art potent weapon platforms and has made our Navy and a country a global force to reckon with. The foundation of this phenomenal growth was laid by late Commodore V.P. Garg and his distinguished colleagues, late Shri Padmanabhan, late Shri Dhotiwala, and late Shri Dhumal, to name a few. And this was way back in 1950s. The renowned team was also responsible for setting up the Corps of Naval Constructors as a part of engineering branch of Indian Navy in 1957. Since its inception, the Corps has grown from strength to strength and stands as an example of professionalism, technological excellence, and industrial harmony. The benefits derived out of Commodore V.P. Garg's 32 years of illustrious career in the Navy are plentiful. Most significant were his contributions to our first indigenous warship building program, commencing from modest seaward defense boats to Leander-class ships. The deep-rooted sense of duty and discipline and unfailing dignity, innovative intellect, insatiable desire to learn, and above all, his driven spirit has made us to remember him and strive to emulate him. Navigating downstream with the current carrying you to the sea is easy, but to navigate upstream when the winds and currents blow westerly is no easy achievement. It is indeed appropriate that an event of this scale is organized as a mark of respect for the achievements and yeoman service of our illustrious predecessors. We strongly feel that we honor our traditions and our core values by honoring our distinguished seniors who conceptualized and laid the foundation of our success. We are deeply honored by the attendance of professionals here today, and it is indeed a great pleasure to once again welcome you, the esteemed audience, to welcome you to IIT Delhi. Thank you. Jai Hind.
May I now call upon Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh to deliver the keynote address.
Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Secretary, Ministry of Shipping, Ports and Waterways, who is the distinguished speaker of the day also today, Director IIT Delhi, the distinguished faculty of the IIT Delhi, large number of senior veterans who are present here today, student officers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. It's indeed an honor for me to be here at the 19th Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture organized by the Naval Construction Wing and Applied Mechanics Department. More so, I am profoundly happy that this event has been revived after a gap of almost 13 years. Before I proceed further, I would like to thank Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Secretary, Ministry of Shipping, who has spared his time amidst his busy schedule to enlighten us with these views today. I think in a country where whether it is infrastructure industry and all his past appointments with NHI, etc., he has, with his dynamism, he has left a benchmark which I think many of the departments and ministers in the government of India find it difficult to match up with. I am sure all of us are looking for his views on the vision for the maritime sector, which is critical for the economy as well as the security of the country. Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture was organized annually from the 1988 as brought out to commemorate late Commodore Ved Prakash Garg's memory. He received his training from Royal Naval College, UK, and over a span of 32 years, he has laid the foundations of the Indian Navy ship design and construction capabilities. Commodore Garg was a driving force in the India's warship building program. We started with the seaward defense boat and small yard crafts in 1950s. And with his colleagues, as mentioned, late Paramanandan, Dhotiwala, Mr. Dhumal, we moved on, and large number of veterans who are in the audience, I think they had a lot to contribute in this journey. All of us who would have seen the lot of news flashes over a period of last 2 years, last 2 days, I would say, whether it is SLBM launch from INS Aryan, that's a nuclear submarine, which gives a very, very important strategic capability to the country, to the commissioning of the indigenous aircraft carrier Vikrant. I must see that what our predecessors have laid a foundation has flowered into kind of a shipbuilding ecosystem where today, truly in true sense, we have started making headways into making for the world. I am really proud that most of the shipyards today are vying for export orders. In fact, we are started exporting warships for the friendly foreign countries. And I'm also proud to see that even including ship repairs, today the foreign navies are looking towards the Indian industry to repair, and we have made a headway, significant and long, though it is a long way, but I am sure we will truly make it for the world. I also see that most of the constructors who have been alumni of this institution, that is IIT Delhi, have been contributing all around the globe, specifically in India. And it is a proud moment that one of our private shipyard, Larsen & Toubro, is qualified to actually design a ship for the Royal Navy, from whom we inherited the Indian Navy. I think it's a great moment. I also would like to thank the veterans, I think, who are in the large presence here, and I would not get into naming one or other, but I must mention, I think, Commander Prem Prakash, who at the age of 87 years is here to bless with us, and today is his birthday, so I think it's a big day for us. As has been brought out, I think in this journey of 46 or so alumni passing out from this Department of Applied Mechanics, as Rear Admiral Harish, who has also been conferred as a distinguished alumni by IIT Delhi for his contribution to shipbuilding ecosystem. As we move along, as you are saying, the changes in the strategic and where the relationships are changing very, very fast without any of us realizing, and as the government's mandate, Swavalamban is key for everything. Swavalamban, when we talk, I think we need to synergize also. I had just a 5-10 minutes interaction with Secretary Shipping, and I'm sure his vision, which he is going to display after this lecture, is going to definitely take us forward where we have to reduce our dependence. His dynamism is so actually rubs you. Within 5-10 minutes, I think the Director IIT and head of the Applied Mechanics Department had a proposal, and he within 5 minutes just said, just go ahead and send a proposal tomorrow or Monday. I think this is the ecosystem today in the country, which I think Indian Navy would be very keen to leverage, synergize, and move ahead in the industry. I'm extremely thankful to the organizers, that is Naval Construction Wing, the Applied Mechanics faculty, who have at the forefront of nurturing this. I think it's a unique course in the country, and which has sustained, stabilized, and progressed. I have only requested Director IIT Delhi as well as the Applied Mechanics how do we go further? We started with seaward defense boat and yard crafts, but now we are building complex destroyers, frigates, and nuclear submarines, and these are all system of systems. And we definitely need to build a knowledge base in the areas of model testing, the propulsion system integration, the power generation distribution, building very compact equipment and systems. And I'm sure when we work together as an industry, the academia, the government departments, we will find our way ahead. I also take this opportunity specifically, a big event that we had in month of September, that is commission of IAC. We have received a tremendous support from the not only Ministry of Shipping all across, but all their, what I would say, the organizations like not only Cochin Shipyard, Dredging Corporation, India, COPT, which made our life very, very comfortable in achieving what we desire to achieve in a time-bound manner. As I brought out, this is going to way ahead. No one alone can succeed in this journey. Maritime sector plays a vital role, and I am sure today's session would enlighten all our student young officers as well as those who are in the business of practicing shipbuilding in the country. Before I conclude, I would like to quote Henry Ford, who said, "Coming together is just all the successes in their endeavors." Thank you. Jai Hind, Shamna Varuna.
May I now request Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh to present a small memento as a token of our gratitude to the distinguished speaker of the day, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan. May I now request Director IIT Delhi to kindly felicitate our chief guest with a traditional memento. May I now request our chief guest to present the NCW crest to Director IIT Delhi in acknowledgement of the contributions made by the institution. Thank you, sir. Naval Construction Wing at IIT Delhi was established in the year 1977 to reflect on the journey of Naval Construction Wing and its contributions to the Corps of Naval Constructors. A coffee table book has been prepared by the student and staff officers of NCW. May I now request our chief guest, Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh, to release the NCW coffee table book. academics play an essential role in the profession of a naval architect. It is therefore prudent to acknowledge and award outstanding academic performances of NC officers. May I now request Vice Admiral Kiran Deshmukh to kindly present awards for academic excellence in the field of naval construction. Shri Paramanandan Gold Medal. Shri Paramanandan Gold Medal for Best Academic Performance during PGDIIT course for academic year 2021 is awarded to Lieutenant Ashutosh Rastogi for scoring a CGPA of 9.33 in PGDIIT course. Lieutenant Ashutosh Rastogi. Shri Sam Dotiwala Award. Shri Sam Dotiwala Award for scoring highest CGPA during MTech for academic period 2020-22 is awarded to Lieutenant Commander Prashant Warrior for scoring a CGPA of 9.7 at IIT Kharagpur. Lieutenant Commander Prashant Warrior. Commodore A.N. Thukral Award. Commodore A.N. Thukral Award for Best Major Project Work during PGDIIT course for academic year 2020-21 is awarded to Lieutenant Anashwara Nair and Lieutenant Rahul Kumar for their design of ballistic missile defense destroyer. Lieutenant Anashwara Nair and Lieutenant Rahul Kumar. Captain N.S. Mohan Ram Award. Captain N.S. Mohan Ram Award for Best Minor Project Work during PGDIIT course for academic year 2021-22 is awarded to Lieutenant Raghav Pandey for his work for formulation of omniphobic coatings. Lieutenant Raghav Pandey. Thank you, sir. May I now request our dignitaries on stage to kindly take their seats on the main floor. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present a short video highlighting the evolution of ship construction in India, the growth of ANSI cadre, and the role of Naval Construction Wing in indigenizing shipbuilding activities.
Ships have always played an important role in shaping human destiny, whether they ply the waters for peaceful or martial ends. In pursuit of trade, exploration and defense, ships and the sea lanes of communications are vital to national prosperity and aspirations. History suggests that floating wooden logs in flowing waters must have been the first mode of transportation and the modest beginning of naval architecture. The art and the science of design and construction of waterborne vessels and structures. Naval architecture, therefore, may well contend to hold the distinction of the oldest skill, if not the oldest profession. Excavations at Lothal have unearthed the remains of the earliest dry dock in the world, establishing India as one of the earliest shipbuilding nation, if not the first. Chandragupta Maurya, in the year 300 BC, created the Admiralty as a department of the state. Navadhyaksh, meaning superintendent of the boats, has also been quoted in the Arthashastra, written by Kautilya. Indian iron and steel technology were as advanced. Delhi's famous rust-free iron pillar, dated 402 CE, is considered a metallurgical marvel even till today. In 1612, Britishers set up the first factories and shipbuilding facilities at Surat. In 1735, under the watch of Lavji Nasarwanji Wadia, the shipyard at Surat was shifted to Bombay, present-day Naval Dockyard at Mumbai. During the course of the next 100 years, the yard proceeded to build more than 115 war vessels and 144 merchant ships, including 84 gunships for the Royal Navy. HMS Trincomalee, the oldest British warship afloat today, was built at the Bombay Dockyard in 1817. In 1941, Dr. Rajendra Prasad laid the foundation stone of Hindustan Shipyard Limited to revive shipbuilding activities at Vishakhapatnam. The adage, "the sun never sets in the British Empire," defined the glory of British colonialism. There were just two things that enabled the sun to keep shining over the empire: the ships of the Royal Navy and the people behind them, those who sailed in them and those who designed and built them, the Royal Corps of Naval Constructors. French were the pioneers in forming Génie Maritime, the first professional corps of naval constructors in 1765. The Génie Maritime became the model for the Naval Construction Corps of many countries, including Spain, the Netherlands, Japan, and Britain. When India gained independence, there were no homegrown naval architects, and the responsibility of maintenance and repairs of the RIN ships of World War II vintage fell on the marine engineers, electrical engineers, and shipwright officers of the Naval Dockyard, Mumbai. Sri Paramanandan became the first officer of the Corps of Indian Naval Constructors, followed by Sri Sam Dotiwala and Sri Dhumal. Directorate of Naval Construction was conceived in 1954, and Lieutenant V.P. Garg, the first uniformed naval architect, joined the directorate. These four officers proved to be the four pillars of the Corps. They were the doyen of ship designers who placed warship design on solid foundation in the Indian Navy and in the country. Inspirational contributions by Sri Paramanandan, Admiral S.M. Mishra, Commodore Thukral, Captain Lohana and Captain Kapoor led to the transformation of design offices and Indian shipyards such as GRSE, MDL, CSL and GSL. On the 11th of March 1957, sanctioned for a formal cadre of naval constructors in the Indian Navy, comprising of 18 uniformed officers, was accorded. During the first decade of transformation, DNC, with its meager complement, contributed in the construction of 1 survey ship, 6 seaward defense boats, 2 wooden minesweepers, and a fleet tug. In addition to the design, construction and modification of a number of auxiliary vessels, the Directorate of Naval Construction, renamed as the Directorate of Naval Architecture, DNA, in 1985, gave birth to the warship overseeing teams at shipyards, Directorates of Acquisition Projects, and Directorates of Warship and Submarine Designs. In 1964, to match the Pakistani naval fleet, contract for construction of 3 Leander-class frigates was awarded to MDL. After the launch of the first Leander-class frigate, INS Nilgiri, in 1968, the Prime Minister ordered urgent strengthening of Navy's design organization to quickly produce future naval vessel designs. It was then that for the first time, self-reliance in the fields of warship design and production was added as a major objective in the National Defense Plan that led to setting up directorates for ship construction projects and naval warship and submarine designs in the 1960s. The SDB Mark II was the first successful design project from the DND. In 1974, work on the first indigenously designed frigate commenced. Godavari-class design had the distinction of being faster than Leanders with the same power plant despite being much longer. Kukri-class corvettes were designed with a new hull form and delivered by MDL during late 1980s. Indian Navy wanted to introduce gas turbine propulsion on its with the largest warship ever designed in the country till then. The in-house design of Brahmaputra class frigates entailed structural interfacing of non-Russian weapons. The indigenous content of these ships was of the order of 80%. The state-of-the-art Shivalik class frigates are the first indigenously designed stealth frigates of the Navy. These ships have exceptionally high cavitation inception speeds and are designed to cater for helicopter operations in sea states up to 6. With the modernization in design and incorporation of latest ship design software and tools, Warship Design Bureau embarked on a journey to develop ship designs to world-class standards of stealth, strength and survivability, stability, seakeeping, maneuverability and equipment fit. Design and construction of Kolkata and Vishakhapatnam class destroyers, Nilgiri class frigates, Kamorta class ASW corvettes, OPVs and FIBs are testimony to Warship Design Bureau's commitment towards Atmanirbharta endeavors of the Indian Navy. The Navy had been examining various options for the replacement of the aircraft carrier INS Vikrant from the early 80s. The first government sanction for the air defense ship was accorded in 1999. On the 2nd of September 2022, India joined the elite club of nations to have built and commissioned an indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant. Successful completion of the project with high degree of indigenization and highly satisfactory sea trials amplifies the design capability of the NC Corps. The legacy of warship building has been passed over with time, but the successors have always ensured that the flag of the Corps remains to fly high.
In total, 19 different designs, ranging from small crafts to aircraft carrier, have been developed by the Navy's design organization, to which 93 warships have been built, which form the bulk of the Indian naval fleet today. 10 more ships are under construction and 8 platforms have been accorded acceptance of necessity. The quality of these designs has been proven repeatedly. Warship Design Bureau has successfully scripted the Atmanirbharta ambitions of the Navy.
Designing and building a submarine is one of the most complex and sophisticated design and manufacturing operations imaginable. Since independence, the Navy strived hard to acquire its own submarines. Although the Navy had been considering indigenous submarine construction right from the 1960s, the contribution of the constructors remained confined to repairs of the double-hull Soviet submarines. In the 1980s, the first Type 209 class boats, designed in Germany, were inducted into the Indian Navy, marking the beginning of acquisition of submarine design and construction technology in India. In October 1982, the first group of core design specialists was deputed to undergo training at Germany and formed the Indian Navy Submarine Design Team, INSDT. Naval constructors were intimately involved with overseeing the indigenous construction of the other two SSK submarines at Mazagon docks. Staff requirements for an indigenously made submarine design designated Project 75 were finalized in 1992. D&D SDG was entrusted upon to provide design support to the project during the construction and operational phase. Fifth of the Project 75 submarine is expected to be commissioned in December 22. In 1979, Admiral Gorshkov, during his meeting with Indian Ambassador Sri I.K. Gujral, explained how India was hemmed in by the straits on both sides, and India must have atomic submarines to match with China. Design and development under a project code named Advanced Technology Vessel, ATV. Formal sanction for the ballistic nuclear submarine program was given by Srimati Indira Gandhi in 1983-84. In May 1998, India conducted the Shakti nuclear tests and declared the intention to build a sea-based deterrent. INS Arihant was publicly launched in July 2009 and was commissioned into the Navy in August 2016 with 70% indigenous component. The project has made India the first country outside the UNSC permanent members capable of constructing and operating such sophisticated platforms. The platform is the final link in the Indian nuclear triad.
भारत के दुश्मनों के लिए, शांति के शत्रुओं के लिए एक खुली चेतावनी है कि वे भारत के खिलाफ कोई दुस्साहस न करें.
Considerable design and construction knowledge was augmented by setting up of organizations such as BHEL, Midhani, NGEF, HEC, DRDL, BEL, and DRDO laboratories, along with the private sector industries of Larsen & Toubro, Walchand Nagar, Tata, and Kirloskar groups.
The Directorate of Naval Design, Submarine Design Group, has come a long way in the field of submarine design over the past 35 plus years. There has been a great assimilation of various aspects of platform and system designs. With a number of underwater platforms planned to be inducted in the coming years, it is really an exciting and challenging time for the organization. We are confident in realizing the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat in these endeavors.
The design achievements of the Corps of Naval Constructors are reflected by Admiral Hiranandani in his book Transition to Eminence. Viewed overall, the Navy's achievements in the field of warship design and production were amazing. In the 25 years between 1965 and 1990, a tiny ship design cell that was designing yard craft had blossomed into the Directorate of Naval Design that was designing an aircraft carrier, submarines, destroyers, and numerous types of large auxiliary and minor war vessels. All the glory and achievements of the Corps in design, construction, operations and maintenance would not have been possible without adequately trained human resource and professionals. During the initial years, the trainee officers were deputed to UK for conversion to naval constructors. With time, it was found that the government was not very keen to spend for such long training abroad. In 1952, IIT Kharagpur became the first institute to offer a course in naval architecture. First batch of homegrown naval architects from IIT Kharagpur joined as direct entry officers in 1958. Naval Construction Wing at IIT Kharagpur was formally established in 1967, with Commodore M.K. Mukherjee as the first officer in charge. In 1977, the Naval Construction Wing at IIT Kharagpur was shifted to IIT Delhi for logistic and administrative reasons. NCW at IIT Delhi conducts 1.5-year PG diploma course for under-trainee officers of NC cadre. Rigorous and comprehensive academic curriculum at NCW IIT Delhi includes engineering and naval architecture subjects. Subjects pertaining to the theory and applications of fluid mechanics, solid mechanics and computational numerical methods are taught by IIT professors, whereas NCW staff officers posted as adjunct faculty of IIT cover subjects related to warship and submarine design. The course provides a sound theoretical and computational background for countering diverse challenges in warship and submarine design. NCW boasts of a dedicated library with a collection of over 3,500 technical books and journal transactions. The computational lab is equipped with 11 workstations of modern computational configurations and licenses of the latest engineering software such as ANSYS, Star CCM Plus for solid, fluid and structural analysis. For training the young minds on latest ship and submarine design softwares, Paramarine, NAPA and MaxSurf licenses have been provisioned at NCW. Under-trainee officers have also represented IIT Delhi at Inter-IIT Sports Championships and awarded the Blazer for being the best sportsman at IIT. To inculcate team spirit and camaraderie, adventure activities like whitewater rafting and trekking are organized by NCW. Since 2003, NCW has been conducting 2-week mid-career refresher courses for NC officers across all commands of the Navy, with an aim of revising naval architecture and engineering basics.
NCW, located at Applied Mechanics Department, is the alma mater of almost all officers of the Corps of Naval Constructors. Till date, more than 646 Naval and Coast Guard officers have successfully passed out from the portals of this sacred institution. NCW at IIT Delhi was formed with a vision of indigenizing naval construction training, and it is heartening to see the contributions made by the alumni towards self-reliance in warship and submarine design and construction. Through the competent NCW trainees passing out every year, the department has empowered the Indian Navy to transform into a builder's navy from a buyer's navy.
Till 2009, NCW was extensively involved in organizing the Commodore Garg Memorial Lecture, held to commemorate late Commodore VP Garg, the first uniformed naval architect of India. Back then, CGML held the distinction of being the only such annual event for professional naval architects at the national level. The first CGML lecture was delivered by Admiral Vig, then Commodore and Director of Naval Architecture, on the 19th March 1988. Since then, a number of eminent Indians have spoken from the CGML platform, including an ex-President of India. Department of Applied Mechanics at IIT has always showered wholehearted commitment towards NCW. The department holds collaborations with several industries and foreign universities. Being intrinsically interdisciplinary, the field of applied mechanics encompasses specializations such as aerospace, mechanical, civil, design, biomechanics, naval and ocean engineering. The department boasts of highly renowned faculties in the field with exceptionally high standards of technical publications. Over the years, the department has gained expertise in the areas of nonlinear elasticity, composites, impact mechanics, computational mechanics, turbulence modeling, bio and nanomechanics, etc. To name a few, the faculty of the department are involved in developing accurate models of human brain, developing sensors and energy harvesting devices, blood flow analysis in arteries, developing accurate models of cloud, designing helmets and exosuits for defense personnel, machine learning for digital twins with various applications in mechanics in recent years, naval projects on interaction of wake of a frigate ship with helicopters, and interaction of wake of an aircraft carrier with landing fighter aircraft have been assigned to the department. These projects have been formulated to provide design recommendations to mitigate the undesirable effects of the interacting wakes. Department boasts of state-of-the-art facilities and equipment at its fluid and impact mechanics lab and workshops for experimentation, combined with the academic might and facilities available at IIT Delhi. NCW has the potential to become a net solution provider for all naval architectural challenges of the industry. NCW can transform into an incubator of ideas and a think tank for the warship and submarine design specializations and take up end-to-end research on naval challenges. CGML provides the right platform for establishing synergy amongst academia, R&D, industry and the Navy towards achieving the greater common objective of self-reliance. With our collective capabilities, we can evolve from Make in India to Make for the World in the times ahead.
May I now request the gathering to kindly proceed to seminar hall foyer for high tea and interactions. The gathering is requested to reassemble at 1130 hours for CGML session. Thank you.
सागर, जहां 2 दिन कभी एक जैसे नहीं होते। हर पल लहरों का बदलता रुख, नई चुनौतियां, मानव क्षमताओं को ललकारता समुद्र, हर दिन असाधारण, भारतीय नौसेना हर चुनौती का जवाब तुरंत, समुद्री सरहदों पर तैनात, अनोखे समाधान खोजती, साधारण दिनों में भी एक असाधारण शक्ति। हम हैं युद्ध तत्पर, विश्वसनीय और सुगठित भारतीय नौसेना। हमारे लिए है हर क्षण विलक्षण। जब हमें परखा गया, हमने ये सफर छोड़ा नहीं, हम मुड़े नहीं, लड़खड़ाए नहीं, हम बढ़ते रहे ताकि सागर सुरक्षित रहे, भारत के लिए और विश्व के लिए। 50 साल पहले 1971 में भारतीय नौसेना ने थल सेना और वायु सेना के साथ निर्णायक युद्ध लड़ा। 2 मोर्चों पर बांग्लादेश आजाद हुआ, भारत की सीमाएं हुई सदैव सुरक्षित। आज जब विजय मशाल देश के कोने कोने में पहुंच रही है, राष्ट्र मना रहा है स्वर्णिम विजय वर्ष। प्रधानमंत्री ने मशाल प्रज्वलित की, स्वर्णिम विजय मशाल, एक प्रतीक भारतीय वीर योद्धाओं के शौर्य और बलिदान की और बांग्लादेश के लोगों के साथ जुड़े आत्मीय रिश्ते की, उन विलक्षण क्षणों का उपलक्ष्य। उस निर्णायक विजय के जश्न में शामिल हम बांग्लादेश के स्वतंत्रता दिवस पर INS सुमेधा और INS कुलिश पहुंचे ऐतिहासिक मोंगला बंदरगाह। हर क्षण विलक्षण, भारतीय नौसेना का मंत्र। एक ब्लू वाटर नौसेना, विश्व की सबसे विशाल नौसेनाओं में एक। भारतीय नौसेना की जिम्मेदारी सुनिश्चित रहे राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा और हित, सुदृढ़ हो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सहयोग और सद्भाव, रक्षा हो समुद्री सुरक्षा की, तत्पर रहे खोज और बचाव के लिए, मानवीय सहायता और आपदा राहत के लिए। तैनात हैं हम समुद्री सतह के नीचे, लहरों पर, आकाश में, अंतरिक्ष से। कोविड-19 एक अप्रत्याशित चुनौती। 2021 में महामारी की दूसरी लहर एक ललकार, पूरी मानवता के अस्तित्व को ये चुनौती थी अभूतपूर्व। नियम पुस्तिका अपर्याप्त, पर नौसेना के लिए ये कोई नई बात नहीं। हर क्षण विलक्षण, नए प्रोटोकॉल्स लिखे गए, इंजीनियर्स ने किए आविष्कार, तैनात हुए ऑक्सीजन प्लांट्स ऑन व्हील्स, तैयार हुए ऑक्सीजन रिसाइकलिंग सिस्टम्स, मरम्मत हुई ऑक्सीजन प्लांट्स की, जिससे राज्यों में उत्पादन बढ़ा। समुद्र सेतु माध्यम बना राहत कार्यों का। लिक्विड ऑक्सीजन की सप्लाई अपने नागरिकों तक। ऑक्सीजन एक्सप्रेस से इस मुहिम को मिली नई ऊर्जा। दोस्ती का फर्ज अदा किया पड़ोसी देशों में ऑक्सीजन की पूर्ति कर। नागरिक प्रशासन की मदद, सीमावर्ती रक्षा कर्मियों का टीकाकरण। अपने आप में सिमट जाने की स्वाभाविक प्रवृत्ति के विरुद्ध हम बाहर निकले, जूझे इस चुनौती से। सागर, पूरे हिंद महासागर क्षेत्र की सुरक्षा और विकास के लिए प्रधानमंत्री का संकल्प और दृढ़ हुआ। भोजन सामग्री, आपदा राहत, मानवीय सहायता पहुंची। मेडागास्कर, कोमोरोस, कंबोडिया और वियतनाम तक। 2021 नौसेना के लिए साबित हुआ सेवा का वर्ष। मित्रों और देशवासियों की मदद बन गई एक दिनचर्या। चक्रवात तोकते का मुस्तैदी से सामना। लगातार जारी खोज और बचाव के तहत सैकड़ों जानें बचाई गई। ओडिशा और पश्चिम बंगाल में चक्रवात यास, गोताखोर और बाढ़ राहत टीमें तैनात। नौसेना की सौम्य भूमिका का उदाहरण। इंडोनेशिया की एक पनडुब्बी लापता होने पर भारतीय नौसेना ने तुरंत कार्यवाही की। डीप सबमर्जेंस रेस्क्यू व्हीकल यानी DSRV तैनात करने की विशिष्ट क्षमता रखने वाले देशों में शामिल भारत ने बहुत कम समय में DSRV को रवाना किया। ओमान की खाड़ी में कार्गो शिप MV नयन के सिस्टम और उपकरण फेल हो गए। INS तलवार के इंजीनियर्स तुरंत पहुंचे, कुछ ही घंटों में कार्य क्षमता बहाल कर दी। श्रीलंका तट से कुछ दूर मर्चेंट वेसल एक्सप्रेस पर्ल में आग लग गई। बचाव कार्यों में मदद के लिए नौसेना ने तैनात किया INS सर्वेक्षक। सर्वे बोट्स और इंटीग्रल सेंसर्स की मदद से समुद्र में डूबे कंटेनर्स खोजे गए। एक असाधारण वर्ष और असाधारण माहौल। पूरे विश्व में एक अवसर, नई साझेदारियां बने और पुरानी सुदृढ़ हो। वरुणा 2021 भारत और फ्रांस की नौसेनाओं के बीच भागीदारी की नई संभावनाएं सामने आई। INS प्रलय अबू धाबी पहुंचा नैवडेक्स और आइडेक्स 2 के लिए। कॉर्बेट भारत और इंडोनेशिया की नौसेनाओं को मिले सक्रिय पेट्रोलिंग के मौके। पारस्परिक तालमेल बढ़ा भारत और थाईलैंड की नेवीज के बीच। UNAV-4 एक संयुक्त नौसेना अभ्यास, एक प्रयास समुद्री डकैतियों और सुरक्षा के खतरों से जूझने का। पैसेज एक्सरसाइज हुई अमेरिका के साथ और रॉयल नेवी के साथ बंगाल की खाड़ी में। हिंद महासागर के तटीय देशों की नौसेनाएं साथ आईं। मौका 7th इंडियन ओशन नेवल सिंपोजियम, द रीयूनियन। मालाबार एक्सरसाइज से रिश्ते मजबूत हुए। अमेरिका, जापान, ऑस्ट्रेलिया और भारत के ट्राई सर्विस अभ्यास, कोंकण शक्ति, भारत और यूनाइटेड किंगडम के बीच समुद्री सहयोग का मंच, भरोसा, सागर का माहौल स्थिर और सकारात्मक रहे। असाधारण समय में भी जहाज निर्माण में आत्मनिर्भरता के संकल्प को मुस्तैदी से निभाया भारतीय ने। ISC विक्रांत के समुद्री परीक्षण के साथ उल्टी गिनती शुरू। 2022 में ये युद्धपोत नौसेना में शामिल होगा। इस पहले स्वदेशी एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर के साथ भारत अब उन गिने चुने देशों में शामिल जिनके पास ये विशिष्ट क्षमता है। विक्रांत INS विक्रमादित्य के साथ हिंद महासागर और देश हित से जुड़े क्षेत्रों में पेट्रोलिंग करेगा। समुद्री सुरक्षा तंत्र को मिलेगी नई धार। INS करंज, तीसरी कलवरी क्लास सबमरीन नेवल डॉकयार्ड मुंबई में कमीशन हुई। ये पनडुब्बी पश्चिमी नौसेना कमान की सबमरीन फ्लीट का हिस्सा बनेगी। INS वेला, चौथी कलवरी क्लास डीजल अटैक पनडुब्बी भी नौसेना में शामिल। इसकी मुख्य भूमिका दुश्मन को समुद्री पहुंच से वंचित रखना। स्टेल्थ गाइडेड मिसाइल डिस्ट्रॉयर INS विशाखापट्टनम की कमिश्निंग के साथ भारतीय नौसेना को मिली नई शक्ति। हिमगिरी का प्रक्षेपण, मील का पत्थर, यह है प्रोजेक्ट 17 में बना पहला जहाज। इस प्रोजेक्ट के तहत जहाजों में होंगे बेहतरीन स्टेल्थ फीचर्स, स्वदेशी हथियार और सेंसर्स जो नौसेना की क्षमताओं को देंगे नई ऊर्जा। खोज और बचाव के कार्यों में नौसेना को कुछ और पंख मिले। जब कमीशन हुआ INAS 323, एक नया स्वदेशी ALH Mark III हेलीकॉप्टर। आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर बढ़ते हुए NIIO ने डीप टेक स्टार्टअप्स के साथ MOUs साइन किए और नई इनोवेशंस MSMEs को सौंप दी। कहते हैं पुराने जहाज मरते नहीं, वो और उनका सफर अमर रहेगा। यही है उनकी शक्ति का स्रोत। 41 साल तक चली एक शौर्य गाथा पे पर्दा गिरा जब INS राजपूत सेवा मुक्त हुआ। भारतीय नौसेना का पहला जहाज जो इंडियन आर्मी की राजपूत रेजिमेंट के साथ संबद्ध हुआ। यह विरासत जीवित रहेगी एक बेहतरीन उदाहरण बनकर। नेवल एविएशन से भारतीय नौसेना के फौलादी इरादों को पंख मिल जाते हैं। शुरुआती दिनों में पहले सी लैंड विमान से सी गार्डियन ड्रोन्स की तैनाती तक, शौर्य का प्रतीक नेवल एविएशन निगरानी और प्रहार करने की शक्ति कई गुना बढ़ा देता है। आज नौसेना के हर प्रोजेक्ट के साथ जुड़ा है सशक्त नेवल एविएशन विंग और इसका विस्तार। नेवल एविएशन को प्रेसिडेंट स्कॉलर यानी राष्ट्रपति का ध्वज प्रदान किया गया। 70 वर्षों के गौरवशाली योगदान को एक मान्यता। – 2021 भारत की आजादी का 75वां वर्ष। आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव को पूरे जोश के साथ भारतीय नौसेना ने मनाया देशवासियों के साथ। गुजरात में लोथल। जल्द ही यहां होगा नेशनल मैरीटाइम हेरिटेज कॉम्प्लेक्स। भारतीय नौसेना के सहयोग से बन रहा यह कॉम्प्लेक्स देश में समुद्री चेतना को बढ़ाएगा। 75 वर्षों से विश्व के केंद्र हिंद महासागर में तैनात, आकांक्षाओं से भरे नए भारत के सपने साकार करती। सपना एक विश्वसनीय क्षेत्रीय साझेदार बनने का। सपना एक आर्थिक शक्ति बनने का। राष्ट्र और उसके भविष्य को समर्पित भारतीय नौसेना। दोस्तों की दोस्त, दुश्मनों की दुश्मन। राष्ट्र के सामरिक लक्ष्यों के साथ कदम मिलाती, युद्ध तत्पर, विश्वसनीय और सुगठित भारतीय नौसेना के लिए है हर क्षण विलक्षण। सागर, जहां 2 दिन कभी एक जैसे नहीं होते। हर पल लहरों का बदलता रुख, नई चुनौतियां, मानव क्षमताओं को ललकारता समुद्र। हर दिन असाधारण, भारतीय नौसेना हर चुनौती का जवाब तुरंत। समुद्री सरहदों पर तैनात, अनोखे समाधान खोजती, साधारण दिनों में भी एक असाधारण शक्ति। हम हैं युद्ध तत्पर, विश्वसनीय और सुगठित भारतीय नौसेना। हमारे लिए है हर क्षण विलक्षण। जब हमें परखा गया, हमने ये सफर छोड़ा नहीं। हम मुड़े नहीं, लड़खड़ाए नहीं। हम बढ़ते रहे ताकि सागर सुरक्षित रहे भारत के लिए और विश्व के लिए। 50 साल पहले 1971 में भारतीय नौसेना ने थल सेना और वायुसेना के साथ निर्णायक युद्ध लड़ा।
May I request the gathering to kindly take their seats? Slide one. May I now request Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, the distinguished speaker for the day, to kindly take the dais for conducting today's lecture session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and proud privilege to briefly introduce the speaker for the day, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Secretary, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan has served in the Indian Administrative Service for over 35 years and has extensive experience in formulating public policy on finance, logistics, power and infrastructure development. He assumed the post of Secretary, Ministry of Shipping on 30th April 2020. He previously served as Secretary, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways and Chairman, National Highways Authority of India. Dr. Ranjan also worked on National Security Infrastructure Planning as Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defence and Secretary, Border Roads Development Board. As Director, Ministry of Heavy Industries, he was involved in formulation of national automotive policy and vision for making India into a global automotive hub. He has served as Chief Secretary in the Government of Tripura, Additional Secretary and Financial Advisor to in the Ministries of Road Transport and Highways, Shipping and Tourism, and Principal Secretary in the Departments of Power and Finance. He has also served on the board of a number of companies in the power, infrastructure and tourism sectors. Dr. Ranjan received his BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur, MBA from Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University, and MPhil in Economic Development from University of Glasgow. Dr. Ranjan completed his PhD on the impact of information technology use on efficiency in public sector enterprises at IIT Delhi. He also received a master's degree in public management at the National University of Singapore. During the program, he was attached to the Monetary Authority of Singapore and studied the impact of 2008 economic crisis on Singapore's growth as an international financial hub. He is an alumnus of National Defence College, New Delhi. He was a National Talent Search Scholar and also a Lee Kuan Yew Fellow at Harvard University. Without any further delay, may I now request Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan to kindly conduct 19th Commodore Garg Memorial Session.
What? Lights will be changed manually. Manually? Yes. Not yet. Not working.
This
कौन करेगा check? Approve.
So Dr. Prasad is there.
To say next or it will?
Yeah, yes. Sir is there a lot of times.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Admiral Deshmukh,
Professor Sanghi, my distinguished colleagues from the Indian Navy, all the veterans who have helped build up the institution and the strength of the Indian Navy, what it is today, what we heard of, what we saw on the video, my friends and dear students who are in the middle of the course. At the outset, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. I am indeed privileged to have got this opportunity, but I thought I'll use this occasion to give an idea of what the Indian shipping scenario is like. We in the Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways, about a year back, we had a new India Maritime Vision 2030, which was launched in March 2021 by the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, the Indian port shipping and waterways sector as a whole is indeed a sector where everyone's involvement is a must, and only then can it succeed. And starting from the kind of energy that we have with the youngsters here, we should be able to build up an ecosystem that you've been able to do in the Navy, in the entire maritime sector, if you want to make the Vision 2030 a reality. With that kind of end in view, I thought I'll quickly run you through as to where we stand today, what the vision is, and maybe working together, how we can really transform the entire Indian maritime sector. The opportunities exist, and I'm sure you all from the very same domain, so you know it all. But just to capture where we stand, in terms of ports, our country has done well enough in the sense that the ports of JNPT and Mundra, we rank about 33rd and 37th out in the global best. But there's still a lot of catching up to do. With our size and our growth, we should be planning to be in the first 10, and that's what our Vision 2030 thinks of. In terms of capacity addition, we have done substantial capacity addition over the last 7-8 years. We've grown an extra 600 million metric tons on the major ports itself. And today we have a capacity which is good enough to meet our immediate requirements. Our capacity is about 2,500 million metric tons on all our ports put together. The cargo that we handle is about 1,300 million metric tons. So we have capacity, but there's a need to modernize it, make it more efficient, and that calls for getting the latest technology in terms of end-to-end IT solutions and so on and so forth, which the vision provides for. On the shipping side, we have our strengths in terms of the manpower that we have. 4 lakh plus trained seafarers who can meet the demand for shipping worldwide, and that is a strength that we have. We have to build on that. Now we have a scheme where the naval manpower can seamlessly transition to the merchant navy. That's an additional supplementary effort that we are trying to put in, so that after having served in the Indian Navy, they can continue to contribute towards the merchant navy, not for India alone, but for the world as a whole. So we have a transition scheme which is in place, and we would like to improve the quality further to be able to be recognized as the quality manpower providers for the world merchant fleet. The recycling industry, we are number 2. We have our own strength. Alang is the nodal point where much of it happens. There are new challenges in terms of the Hong Kong Convention, where they expect our recycling to be cleaner, more environment friendly. We are prepared, and our Alang shipyards are today world class. We had visits from the European delegation, and they are satisfied. But there are some policy issues which we need to sort out. On the shipbuilding and ship repair, unfortunately, the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, the impact on the world shipping industry was adverse, and while we had really scaled up our shipbuilding capabilities by 2008-2009, but that has got a bit of a setback, and we got to do a lot of catching up there, and that's what the vision talks about. We have the capability. It's a question of putting our act together, and we should be back there again, for which we have a strategy which is part of the vision, which I'll come to later. On the waterways sector, we are going big. We see a lot of opportunity there. The multimodal movement and the Gati Shakti program, which has been launched by the government, essentially is to make sure that the potential of waterways is fully harnessed. Today, when we talk of green transportation, when we talk of cheaper transportation, the length that we have on our coast, the waterways that we have, there is an imminent possibility of scaling it up, which will call for more vessels which are able to meet the kind of requirements that we have for waterways. Going to the next slide again gives you an overview of the maritime sector. You know it all. As I mentioned, on the waterways sector, last 5 years, the growth has been substantial. We've grown by about 19%. The Jal Marg Vikas program, which is for the Ganga, the Indo-Bangladesh Protocol route, and the NW2, which is the Brahmaputra, we've been able to have substantial cargo addition on that side, and therefore the volumes have built up. The way the ports have come up, in addition to the major ports, as you see on the coastline, there are a whole lot of non-major ports, the private ports, which have come up in a big way. And today our policy provides for more or less a level playing field. We would like the private sector also to play its role. And in addition to the dots in black, which are the major ports, the other ones which you see in green are the other private ports which have come up, and some of them are doing well. For example, Mundra, as you saw in the very first slide, is in the top 40 now, and the private ports, some of them have the draft and they have linkages already established. We, as part of the Gati Shakti program, are ensuring that the ports, all the ports which are operational, get proper connectivity, both road and rail. So the government is committed to providing the required backup, and the private sector is going forward to set up more port facilities. If you go on to the next slide, this briefly captures the kind of growth we've had in terms of the capacity addition and the volumes of goods moved. The first slot here, as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 2,500 million metric tons of capacity. We did about 1,300 million metric tons last year. So we have adequate capacity. We have the Sagamala program running for last 6 years, which has helped to add capacity and modernize our port side. The Sagamala has also components on other aspects, which I'll come to. On the coastal shipping side, as you see, the volumes have built up. The growth has been about 1.5% in the last 5 years. Similarly, on the waterways side, last year we crossed about 122 million metric tons. And with the new Gati Shakti program and the new national logistic policy, which was announced just last month, the convergence of all the verticals in the government and the other stakeholders is now more and more happening, and therefore the volumes which are going to be added to the waterways is going to be substantial. The usual tendency has been that if something has to be moved, you take to the railways or the road, which is more convenient. Doing waterways requires a bit of extra effort in terms of the loading, unloading, so on and so forth. So when it comes to government departments and government machinery, since the costs are taken care of, that becomes the normal de facto option. But now the effort is to reduce the transportation costs to make it more environmental friendly. And now with that kind of a push, the movement on the waterways is going to improve. The overall capacity have got added, but at the same time we got to be making our ports and the entire sector more efficient, for which again there has been a concerted effort. And in terms of turnaround time, as you can see, the world is getting increasingly containerized, and therefore the turnaround time of the container vessels is the one on which the port efficiency is benchmarked. And as you can see, which used to be say 44 hours or so at JNPT, has now come down to less than 25. So the 4 terminals at JNPT are now virtually close to the world-class numbers in terms of turnaround time. So the vessels which come in are able to do their loading, unloading within a day or so and get moving. So we are there as far as some of our ports are concerned. The volumes of container that is handled, as you can see, has been increasing at a faster pace than the usual bulk cargo. The bulk cargo over the last 5, 6 years, 7 years increased by about 25%, whereas the container movement increased by 64%. So that is another thing I think which colleagues in the academia and our friends here should take note, that while we design our vessels, while we look into the future, the movement is going to be increasingly containerized, because that is where the efficiencies kick in. We are able to do movement which is seamless, paperless, IT driven, and therefore containerization is the order of the day in the days to come, and our planning and designing that has to be kept in mind. The overall ease of doing business, as you can see in the first graph itself, we have improved substantially, but this is a number we can't be satisfied with. We got to be one of the world best to be able to capture the world markets, and that's what we are aiming for. Going to the next slide, if you see, we have got the vision in place last year, where we looked at the possible increase in cargo projection. This gives you an idea in the various categories. Again, coming back to the same point, the container volume is likely to grow by 2.5 times by 2030, and therefore our vision factors that in. And in the next slide, I will just come to a summary of what the Maritime India Vision 2030, the kind of initiatives that have been identified. I'll give you a run-up. On the port side, we have these broad areas with the number of initiatives which are specifically there. The Maritime India Vision is there on the web, and I would, if the detail of these, people who are interested, I'd request them to kindly have a look at that. The idea is that the ports that we have the capacity, but we got to increase the efficiency of these ports, and therefore make them digital, IT driven, paperless and seamless, and therefore also increase the scale. The ports that we have to become mega ports if you want larger ships of the class which are being made to be able to come in, discharge and move on. Therefore, ports of the size of 300 million metric tons plus is what is required, and ports on the western coast, particularly at Kandla, Vadhavan is another location on which we have been trying to put a mega port. On the eastern side, Paradeep and Vishakhapatnam Outer Harbour are places where you would like the biggest of the vessels to be able to come in and move on efficiently. And the vision is to have these world-class infrastructure in place. And they have to be at the same time smart, so as to be able to reduce the logistics cost. This will require some kind of regulatory changes, which we are already on. And they also have to be greener and environmental friendly, because the regulations worldwide, whether the ship or the port operations, are increasingly tightening at the usual way of doing things in a manner which is using bunker oil and so on. I think we'll have to switch to more energy efficient modes. And therefore, that is a parallel activity we have to be focused on. On the shipbuilding side, the 2008-2009 hit that we've taken, we got to catch up on that. And the Atmanirbhar policy of the Government of India, the Make in India policy, which provides that for orders which particularly the government departments provide for less than 200 crores, they have to be on Indian enterprises. That's, I think, is a starting point we want to get started with. And starting with smaller vessels, we have a plan where, starting with tugs, we create an ecosystem so that we become world leaders in a particular class of vessels, provide them full support. And that is the kind of initiatives which are the 11 initiatives mentioned there are a part of the vision. I'll cover them in detail on my subsequent slides. This will call for institutional reforms. Cruise is another major thing which is catching up with our incomes increasing. People have been going to countries all over the world for cruise and paying in foreign exchange. We want it to be happening on Indian shores. So the cruise terminal and cruise shipping is something which we have to do a bit of a catching up, and the vision already provides for it, and we are already at it in the sense that we have now cruise terminals at 4 of our major ports. On the waterways side, as I mentioned, things are picking up, and The vision is that we really go big on that, and the volume should be at least 30% of the movement that happens should be on the waterways and on coastal shipping. Similarly, the opportunities of river tourism and urban water transport. Cities like Mumbai, Calcutta, which have waterways all around, but the roads are congested. The urban transport through waterways makes eminent sense. We, through the Sagamala program, have been able to provide the infrastructure all around the Maharashtra coast, Gujarat coast, and some of the other places. It's a question of, again, having the right kind of vessels and the operators in place so that we are able to capture the potential that we have on that. And with all that, we have about 250 initiatives listed out, and we would expect all the stakeholders to catch on, and the support which is required from the institutions and the government, we are committed to providing that. The next slide is basically a summary of the things which you already done. As I mentioned, the vision also requires regulatory changes and reforms to happen. 3 of them we have already done. The Major Ports Act, we are able to have it approved by the Parliament 2 years back. Now, this gives a lot of autonomy to our major ports. The ports, instead of doing things on their own, now are going to become landlord ports, in the sense that the operations are increasingly going to be given out to private concessionaires. So all the terminals of the major ports today are being given out in PPP mode to the private concessionaires, which brings in the efficiencies required and help to make them world class. The Marine Aids to Navigation Act also got passed last year. We had the earlier Lighthouse Act, which was 100 years old. Now with the new techniques coming in, new technologies coming in, it was felt there's a need to have a built-in provision into our legal framework, and we have done this change. The Inland Vessel Act, again, was of 1934. We have a new Inland Vessel Act, 1917. We have a new Inland Vessel Act now last year, which makes the regulatory regime more seamless. Earlier, inland vessel would require license from various state governments. The certification, the manning requirements were state specific, and states used to do it, which made it very complicated for a vessel which had to, say, run from Haldia all the way to, say, Varanasi, or from Haldia all the way to Guwahati, which were difficult, and state specific clearances were required. Now in the new Inland Vessel Act, we have provisions which makes it easier for business, like the Motor Vehicle Act, 1 license, 1 clearance, 1 certification. The vessel would be in a position to sail from one end to the other, and it will be all India valid. So that is the advantage that is now there. Similarly, the Merchant Shipping Act is the one on which we are working on. We have tried to now get the inputs from all the stakeholders, and hopefully we should be able to present it in the next few months before the Parliament. All the guiding principles for making these changes is to make sure that the entire operations becomes more market-driven, more modern, with digital solutions coming in, and the financing and other things which come into play. We should be able to access the finances which are cheapest and the best, so the required pace of development takes place. The next slide is about the kind of things we already done. I mentioned that about the new act which we have, the concession agreement itself. Now that we are going into a landlord port model, the concession agreement that we have with the private entrepreneur has to be something which is market friendly. We have been giving out concessions for our terminal development for the last 20-25 years. There's been a lot of experience which we have gained, and based on the experience now we have a new model concession agreement for PPP projects, which the market has received very well. The kind of bids that we have get, the kind of competition that it has been able to bring about is indeed encouraging. And with this model, hopefully, the kind of investments and the kind of modernization plans that we have, we should be able to see it through. On the shipbuilding side, we have the new subsidy scheme which we brought in 2016 to take care of the kind of hit we got in 2008. Some development has taken place, but I think the speed of on this, hopefully, while the shipbuilding and other things till the pre-COVID times, the freight rates were subdued and the interest in this area was limited on the commercial side. But 2021, the freight rates reached levels which the EXIM trade was not willing to bear. But on the shipping side, I think it was a bonanza in the sense that the demand really picked up. So whether it is containers, whether it is ships, particularly container ships, there has been a surge in demand. And since the additions have not taken place between 2008 and 2020, now there is again a recovery. This shipbuilding is a cyclic kind of industry. Now is a time when we are looking at a resurgence, both in terms of orders and in terms of the volumes which are getting made. So I think this is a time we got to be riding this wave and catch up on what we had lost earlier. The government itself has already granted it the infrastructure status, and can you move on to the next slide? Yeah, so these are the other things. For example, on shipbuilding, as I mentioned, we got to do a bit of catching up, and therefore the shipbuilding ecosystem, we got to be supporting it. One thing which we thought on the shipbuilding side, to go big on the smaller crafts to start with. The vision was prepared in March 2021 before the freight rates really kicked in. Now we have more opportunities than what the vision provides for. So we started with looking at the smaller vessel segment. And one of the item was that if you're able to make tailor-made designs and make it available to our shipbuilders and to the ports, instead of spending a lot of money and time and resources in designing every vessel, every tug, and then ordering it on Indian manufacturers, we have now standard designs which our Indian major ports have been told to adopt them. And as part of the Make in India order, they necessarily have to place those orders on Indian shipyards. So we have started with this kind of measure, starting with tugs. We would like this to be, this kind of arrangement to be scaled up to other kind of vessels, to the inland waterway vessels, to the offshore vessels which are used by some of our petroleum companies. So increasingly, if we are able to build up our capabilities, using the policy formulations which already exist, we should be able to build up the capabilities with the kind of manpower with this center provides and the IITs are able to develop. We should be able to make use of these policy changes to become a world leader as far as some of these areas are concerned, and we are on that way. Our shipyards have already started placing orders on Indian manufacturers for tugs, and in coming years, we should be able to ensure that with the kind of nurturing that we do, they should be able to scale up and reach global standards. While the ship manufacturing and building is important, we also necessarily have to have vessels flagged in India, and our friends from the forces know it best that what we have on the ports, what we have on the ships, on the merchant side are all dual use facilities. While it is useful for the merchant navy in times of peace, they are equally useful when it comes to a crisis or times of war. And therefore, while we make our ports, design them so that they are able to meet the requirements in such eventualities, our ships also have to be flagged in India so that we are able to get them when we really need. And therefore, we have this scheme for flagging of ships which we got approved last year, where the government now encourages people to get vessels and get them flagged in India, for which we give some kind of a support so that we have enough number of vessels flagged in India so that we are able to get their services when it required. On the digital part, we had the port community system which has been on for quite some time, which was essentially integrating the port activities and the customs. Now with integrated kind of logistics end to end, starting from the truck to the rail to the port to the factory itself, it has to be an integrated chain where the entire thing can be traced from the starting point till the very end. And therefore, we are upgrading it to the National Logistic Portal Marine, where we are trying to get the other stakeholders also integrated on the system which exists. We would like them to latch on with their own kind of proprietary software, whatever it is, the system provides for it. So as an end user, you're able to see when your item was booked, where it is, and when it's going to reach the destination. So that is the idea. In addition to that, you have the ULIP platform, which has now come about under the National Logistics Policy, where all the user agencies, all the government agencies would be providing API interfaces in the public domain, where what is useful for the industry to be able to track the consignments would be provided on the ULIP platform, and it is for youngsters to have startups which take care of these API inputs and design solutions to meet various. So that's a new thing happening on the digital front. The concession agreements that we do, again, the commercial part of it also kicks in where there are disputes and so on. So we have arrangements for getting them resolved quickly. The Jalma Vikas project is another big thing happening with the World Bank assistance for the last 3-4 years on NW1, that's the Ganges. And I was talking to my friends here who pointed out that the night navigation facility on Ganges was missing. The position with regard to draft availability was not known, and therefore the people, the vessel pilot had to struggle finding his way. Now we have a Pani portal of the inland waterways which provides the draft information real time, and the navigator can use that to plan his course. The night navigation facilities are virtually there all the way to Varanasi now, and there may be glitches here and there, but the systems are in place, and it's open for use by our friends on the inland waterways side. But to make all this happen, the Sagamala program has been on for the last 4-5 years, which essentially is meant to reduce the logistic cost, and the entire effort is going to get supplemented and get a substantial push with the Gati Shakti initiative, where all the ministries of the Government of India and the state governments now are in continuous dialogue with each other, which I think is unique. People who are here from the government are used to working in their own verticals. But logistics is one area where possibly working in independent verticals adds to the costs. And with the Gati Shakti program, now that is happening. We had started that as part of the Sagarmala program, where we had these kind of objectives as part of the Sagarmala program. We have done it for the last 4-5 years. We have had successes, which I mentioned, and it includes activities which involve port modernization, port connectivity, port industrialization, coastal community development, and promoting coastal shipping and inland waterways. And it's thanks to these efforts that some of the achievements that we have had, I captured that in the previous slides. The next slide will talk of the various kind of things which have already happened as far as the PPP part is concerned. The number of projects which have got approved in the last few years, the numbers are here. And increasingly with the PPP kind of a model which we have adopted, resource for development of the Indian ports and the maritime sector, we have got over that problem. Now the models are such that the private enterprise finds it useful and attractive, and therefore they are coming in a big measure, and every bid that we give out, there are enough bidders and private sector interest which is coming in. So in terms of resources, with the right kind of model, we don't have a dearth of private investment coming in. It's a question of being able to model our projects properly with the new concession agreement and the new legal systems in place. We are able to do that. And that's a big kind of a plus which has already happened on the policy side. And with that, we have now ambitions of more asset monetization efforts. And the last two lines here summarizes the kind of plans that we have for the future. 68 projects we've already structured and will be going to the market in the next 2-3 years for people to take those. The existing terminals at some of our ports, which have been there for the last 50, 100 years, need to be modernized, need to be equipped, need to be looking better. They would be offered on the PPP mode for people to take that, modernize that, and make them more efficient. So that is the way we are going forward. The next slide is, again, talking of the kind of recent successes we had in making waterways big. If you look at the map there, that's the Gulf of Kambat. Now people, for example, for Surat to going to the Saurashtra area of Gujarat, that is the kind of circuitous route that you see on the Google map. About 400 kilometers is what they had to traverse. But if you take to the waterways, it's a shorter route which takes 4 hours. And unfortunately, we as a country, we're not focused on these kind of possibilities. Now the entire country is now aware of it, and we are going big on this. And as part of the Sagarmala program, we identified a whole host of such possibilities where the origin and destination, where waterways makes more eminent sense than doing it by road or rail. And there's one classic example where Ghogha and Hazira, we have put up the facilities from our side, from the port side, the terminals, and we expect the private sector to go big on this and be able to do things faster, cheaper, better. And this has been one success. Similarly, if you go to Bombay, you have to go from, say, Mumbai to Mandwa, and this is the kind of time and money people had to spend in going all around over to Navi Mumbai and then to Mandwa. And there's a lot of business and other things which is happening on the Mandwa side, on the Ratnagiri side of Maharashtra, Alibag and so on, where people from Bombay used to go on the weekends all the way by road and spend enough time and money. Now we have a ferry which runs from Kolaba, from our Mumbai port terminal to the Mandwa, and people do it in an hour and a half. So that is the kind of saving which they've had, and they find more convenient. So such opportunities of Ro-Ro pack services are available on our rivers across the Ganges, across Brahmaputra, and a whole lot of other things for which we have identified, and we are trying to put up the terminal facilities, and we expect. And again, on this map itself, you look at Navi Mumbai, the entire creek on the two sides, we have a whole lot of infrastructure facilities coming up, so that movement all along the coast, which is more easily doable by the waterways, provided we are able to provide the backup connectivity with buses and other vehicles coming in time, it can become popular. And hopefully the people would start looking at it as a possibility, and we are able to make it big in the days to come. The next slide is again giving you an idea of what the digital systems are about and how they are moving. The blocks that you see in green there, in rather dark blue, are the ones which were part of the earlier port community system, which essentially catered to the requirements of the port. And they were connected to each other, and we used to provide our shippers the kind of services at the port end. But with integrated kind of logistics being required, where you want the exporter wants his things to be tracked right from the factory premises till it reaches its destination. There are blocks in red and the blocks in green, which need to be added so that the whole thing becomes seamless. Now, that has already happened as part of the port community system, and hopefully by end of this year, the entire software would be up and running. The next slide again is basically a summary of the National Logistic Portal Marine, and we would like all the stakeholders to be integrated with this, including banking, finance, insurance, and other stakeholders, so that an exporter is able to seamlessly get all his documentation done without any paperwork. And in this, it will be accessible to all the users, the Navy, the other users who want to figure out which vessel is where. We should be able to give you information on that using this portal. The next slide, again, while we are doing things on the port side, all our ports today are preparing a multimodal connectivity plan. They have a vision 2047 for all their ports, where they're planning what they would be like in next 25 years. Now, here again, as part of the Gati Shakti program, we have been interacting with all the agencies, including Defense and the Navy. And while they plan for the future, it is important that we look at each other's requirements and plan it at this stage itself, rather than doing an independent plan of things. And this will mean that the facilities that we create our ports are again dual use, and instead of spending money twice over, we are able to create a facility which is able to meet the requirements of not just the industry, but also meet our security requirements. So that is one thing which I'd ask our friends to kindly take note of it and make use of it while and interact with our ports to be able to have a plan which is future ready. The next slide is about what we would like to do in the future. On the port side, as I mentioned, while we have the new act, while we have the new concession agreement, the ports have a lot of land, some of them, particularly as you're aware, Mumbai, Calcutta. They are sitting on pieces of land which can be developed into better use. So we're trying to bring in a new land policy, land use policy, so that the land which these ports have can be properly used. captive policy for ensuring that the industries which come on this land, particularly Kandla, Tuticorin, Visakhapatnam, Paradeep, they have adequate land next to the port facilities. And if you're able to have arrangements where industries can use that land and use the port effectively to be able to produce and send things to global markets, we are having policies on that. Dredging is one thing which one keeps hearing about when it comes to doing something big on the marine sector, in the sense that the dredging requirements makes it difficult, etc., etc. So the solution is to have the right kind of vessels which meet the requirement on that particular route. But at the same time, dredging, if you're able to reuse the dredge material, we can bring down the cost and make sure that the dredge material can be used to meet the requirements of our building industry. And so we have a new dredging policy, and hopefully with that, the kind of dredging activity that we have would also become self-sustainable and environmental friendly. The ease of doing business, I mentioned a few points, but we have to make it more efficient and also go green. And therefore, these are kind of initiatives which we have in terms of green ports, ensuring that ports are able to give shore power, clean shore power to the vessels which come in. The documents which come in should be digital and they should get accepted. And with doing all this, we should be able to reduce the waiting time of our vessels and make the entire ecosystem more user-friendly. The next slide is on the initiatives on the inland waterways. The Indo-Bangladesh Protocol route, as I mentioned, is something which is an alternative to taking things to the chicken neck on the Siliguri corridor. And now with the number of new changes that we have had with the government of Bangladesh, we are able to increase the volumes. And the integration of NW1, that's the Ganges and Brahmaputra, through the inland water in the Indo-Bangladesh Protocol route has become feasible. And this November, we are going to have a cruise ship which is going to sail all the way from Varanasi, through the Ganges, through Bangladesh, over to Guwahati and all the way to Dibrugarh. So, which is only to show that the entire waterways connecting Ganga and Brahmaputra, in terms of the draft, in terms of the other requirements which are required, are more or less done thanks to the Jalmarg Vikas program and the other initiatives. The cruise which is going to go all the way from Varanasi to Dibrugarh will hopefully be able to generate the kind of confidence which the cargo industry requires to be able to use these waterways in larger measure. So that is the kind of change that has happened, and hopefully we should be able to have entrepreneurs and startups who start looking at these opportunities and start taking vessels. LPG, which goes by truck from Haldia to Guwahati, could very well go through the waterways from the Haldia port, through the waterways all the way to the northeast. So there are distinct possibilities exist, and working with these ministries and departments, we should be able to make it happen. On the shipping side, I have a whole host of slides after this, where we have to do a lot of catching up, and for that the audience here are the right people who can help us and guide us and tell us what more needs to be done. On the next slide, basically the fact that we have had Vikrant getting launched, designed, and 76% of that being indigenous goes to prove that we have the capabilities. We were doing, for example, more than 300,000 tons in 2000, around the year 2000. But unfortunately, there has been a setback because of various reasons. The other countries like Korea, China, Japan have been able to catch up. The overall slump in the shipping sector has been also a problem. But with the new resurgence that has happened, we have to do a bit of a catching up. There are, of course, problems in terms of the costs that we have on the material side and the financing cost, but we have thought of some initiatives which I'll run you through. For example, in the next slide, if you look at it, we already have these initiatives for shipbuilding. The subsidy scheme which I mentioned, where we used to give 20% of the total cost of the vessel as part of the subsidy, that scheme continues. The Atmanirbhar policy of Government of India, where orders more than 2,000 have to be necessarily on Indian shipbuilders, is another big thing which is already there. The SOP for procurement of tugs for our major ports, we have made it mandatory that the orders for tugs and smaller vessels would have to be on Indian shipbuilders, is the guideline which that we have issued. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana provides for giving vessels to our fishermen which can go into deeper waters. That would provide another kind of a trigger for more orders for at least smaller vessels. And again, for that, we've got these designs standardized so that the orders can be straight away placed on the ship, on the shipyards, without going through the hassle of redesigning every vessel and therefore adding to the cost and time. The Gati Shakti program, hopefully the issues that I mentioned will trigger in a whole lot of demand on the waterways side. So all this will have a catalyzing influence on orders for ships and smaller vessels. The next slide is again the initiatives that we have taken in terms of the chartering arrangement that we have for our major cargo movers. The requirement is that the first priority goes to an Indian ship, an Indian flagged ship or an Indian made ship when it comes to a chartering of vessels. And he gets the right of first refusal. So that provision is there. There's a lot of bulk movement which takes place by petroleum companies, by our power plants, etc., etc. But these provisions are there which give some kind of a priority to Indian built and Indian flagged vessels. That is another thing which has been done. The infrastructure to the shipyards and the Vision 2030 with initiatives that we have on the shipbuilding side, on the ship repair side, on the ship recycling side, should all put together be able to create the kind of impetus that we want. And broadly in the vision, which I would request you in case you would be interested to kindly have a look at that, the detailed initiatives are listed out. We would urge and try to ensure that for smaller vessels we are able to have end-to-end localization. The automobile sector is a classic case, and I happen to be looking at it at one point of time. We started with, we focused on smaller vessels, be it Maruti 800 for people who saw that being made in India. Our ancillary industry came to a stage in around Gurgaon and so on, that in the small vehicle sector, we have today become a world leader. I saw it happening on the automobile side 10 years back. Today I see it on the port side. On the port side, there's a huge demand for terminals which only do automobile exports, because our automobiles in the small category sector, but now increasingly in the more luxury sectors as well, are getting made in India and getting shipped to countries all over the world, and our ports are doing good business. So we reached that stage. We had a policy where we said that if the vehicle is below 1400 cc, it is less than 4 meters, the excise rate was much less. Above that was business as usual. But that lesser excise rate led to a surge of demand from all of us. I remember the Maruti Desire and so on and so forth used to have huge waiting queues, because we knew it was a lakh and a half cheaper than the version which was slightly bigger, which was 4.2 meters. And therefore, with the kind of demand that we had in India, we are able to build up the ecosystem that we are now able to compete with the world. Similarly, if you are able to replicate that model for smaller vessels to start with, start making it for the world, have the ancillaries in place, is what we have in the vision, and hopefully with the help and support of all of you, we should be able to make it happen. The new opportunity which has come is that the world is now looking at more eco-friendly, greener vessels. So the older vessels which used to guzzle bunker oil and add to the pollution at sea, the IMO requirements and the world community expects them to go green. And therefore many of these vessels would have to be necessarily replaced, changed, written off. And if we are able to put our act together on making greener vessels and be ready to meet the orders which are coming our way, we should be able to catch up there. So these are two distinct areas which I think is our opportunities that we got to be working on, and with the kind of initiative which government has provided in terms of the renewable energy initiatives. We are big on solar power as it is. There's a new hydrogen mission which is getting launched. The two things put together, if you're able to get the benefits of that on our shipbuilding and ship repair side, we should be able to catch up on both these possibilities which are there. The other things which I mentioned in terms of reducing logistic cost and giving financial incentives, we have some measures on that. The next slide, again, these are the focus areas which we are working on, essentially to create the ecosystem of having the domestic suppliers, increasing our competitiveness, and to have a strong arrangement for design, R&D, engineering capabilities. And in that particular initiative, what we are having today fits in and is an absolute must for anything to happen after that. It's only after we have the manpower required to be able to drive the other initiatives can other things happen. And I would like to thank the IIT community and the entire team here and all the luminaries who have been able to put this institution here, that today the Indian Navy is able to design, manufacture, and commission these platforms indigenously, which is unique to the Indian Navy, and thanks to the effort of all the people who are sitting here, that it has been made possible. I think the world needs to draw lessons from this, and other parts of the forces, whether it's, I'm sure have drawn lessons from this, but the other parts of the Indian industry, there's a model which I think we need to replicate. And with the kind of skills that we have been able to generate, the kind of resources that we've been able to have, I'm sure the opportunities that we have for the future and the vision that we have for 2030, we should be able to realize that. And the initiatives I mentioned are very much there. And the next slide, if you go to, again, just to give you an idea of the kind of things which are happening on the fuel side, hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, wind, there are things happening. Our people are already working on it. Some of our shipyards have already had prototypes, collaborations to make it happen. I have been looking at what the Cochin shipyard has been doing. I have a few slides to just illustrate what has been happening on this. The electric ferry in the Cochin shipyard, they have had orders for 23 vessels for Cochin Metro, so that the Cochin Metro are able to seamlessly link with electric ferries on the two sides, and the vessels of the first of the vessels have already been delivered. Hopefully this can be a model for the other metros to take over, to also adopt. The next slide is on the kind of things which Cochin Metro has done, which now provides seamless transportation to people of Kochi using electric ferries made by the Cochin shipyard. The design, the transmission chain, etc., has all been done indigenously. The next slide, if we are able to look at, is again Cochin shipyard, for example, got orders for the autonomous vessel from the Norwegian company, which is autonomous, and they've been able to deliver 2 such vessels. Now this is going to be another area on which I think we got to build on. The next slide is the area in which will operate, and that's Norway up there, and this is the kind of route they have deployed that, and is going to be the future. The next slide is again the Cochin shipyard, which is now building a 100-passenger ferry boat, which would be on hydrogen cells. We have a pilot project which the ministry has financed. Is another area which we need to be looking at. The next slide is on the green ammonia possibility which exists. Now this is another thing which, as part of the hydrogen mission, the government is keen that we go big on hydrogen and ammonia and methanol, green hydrogen, ammonia, green methanol. Now these are things which we expect in the next 4 or 5 years we should be able to have vessels, maybe starting smaller vessels into bigger vessels, so that the world, the way it is going, we should be able to be prepared to be able to capture those possible business which is like to come our way. The next slide is to make it happen. We already have centers of excellence that we have set up at IIT Chennai and IIT Kharagpur, so that the academic requirement, the R&D requirements, the hand holding, etc., we are able to get industry support, and this is something which is vital for the mission to succeed. In the mission document, if you look at it, we have a vision of having such centers of excellence for a whole host of things, whether it is reducing logistic cost, to look at the legal and the legislative and the policy framework that we have, to look at the digital systems that we have, to look at the green and the renewable energy possibilities that exist, So there are a whole host of activities on which such collaborative effort is a necessity. We have started a few of them and we have had huge benefits with the 2 centers which we have already been able to seed. Today our ports, instead of going around for any design help and so on, go to IIT Chennai and we are able to get instant solutions from people who are the experts in the field. So that is a requirement, and I'm sure there are opportunities to exist as per the vision, so that other areas also we can have such collaborative arrangements in place, which not just our ports and our shipping ministry, but everyone who's in the ecosystem can make good use of. The relationship with the forces, as I mentioned right at the beginning, we have had a new transition scheme in place, which was earlier this year. The arrangements have been worked out so that people while in the service can get trained and certified on the merchant shipping side as well, so that once they are out of the naval service, they're able to seamlessly get into the level at which they are qualified and they have the experience of, so that we are able to make best use of all the resources that we have in terms of the academic potential, in terms of the manpower, so that we are able to make Vision 2030 a reality. And for making it happen, it is the joint effort of all of us who are sitting here. Only then it's possible. I just gave you a flavor of what it is, but to make it happen, it has to happen with the effort of all of you. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity that you've given me. And I would like to again express my gratefulness to all the stalwarts and Professor Sanghi, who have been able to nurture this ecosystem here. And I wish that we have similar kind of centers of excellence, so that we are able to build up the manpower, which is absolutely a must to make any of these things happen. I thank you all once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your enlightening talk, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the paucity of time, we would be unable to take any questions. The floor is now open for questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us on the slew of initiatives that the government has taken to boost the maritime sector. I have a specific suggestion for the shipbuilding industry. If we look and compare the cost competitiveness with our competitors, and we have a vision to build ships for the world, we have a cost differential of roughly about 15 to 20%, which comprises of the taxes and the interest on working capital. The cost differential is too high for us to compete in the world. So normally orders are won or lost in a difference of about 1%. 15 to 20% is too high a differential for Indian industry to cross. So I would request the government to consider, like all the countries are doing, which are making ships for the world, to look at reducing these costs. One of the interesting initiatives which the government has taken is on ship repair, where the GST has been brought down from 18 to 5% like the MRO for the aircrafts, but more would probably be needed. Thank you.
I think all these things that you are mentioning is part of the issues that we have identified. And while there's no doubt of the fact that some of these numbers and the suggestions that you gave are necessary for getting into a situation where we become globally competitive. But if you break down the costs, there are issues with regard to our labor productivity, with regard to our level of automation, with regard to other things which we got to fix. So everything has to happen at the same time to be able to reach that stage. And therefore, we have taken a calibrated kind of a position where, as I mentioned, that for orders below 200 crores, it necessarily has to be on Indian shipyards. And our shipyards should be able to reach a level of competitiveness in terms of automation and costs. And as we mature, we should be able to get the world orders as well. There's no doubt about the fact that the financing costs have to come down. There's an initiative at Gift City in Ahmedabad, where we are trying to bring in global financial and insurance institutions, so that shipbuilders have access to international finance at international rates, so that the problems that we have on getting finances from domestic financial institutions, we are able to get over that. So there are initiatives which are happening to take care of these things. The vision has been a collaborative effort of all the stakeholders and learned people like you. These issues have been squarely flagged, and we have a calibrated approach to have a solution to that. And again, we are open to having ideas and suggestions to make it happen faster, quicker. But we have to work together to make it happen. And as I said, the idea is initially we go big on smaller vessels, tugs, Make in India program, on which these constraints don't apply. And if you're able to reach a level of maturity, other things will also start falling in place. Yeah, thank you.
Subsidy, government has announced a subsidy, but to claim the subsidy and get the subsidy is a really task. And especially it is very difficult for the private shipyard to claim the money and get it.
Good. I think we can have a separate kind of a discussion on that. We have tried to make it, earlier it used to be a paper-based kind of a mechanism. We have now a paperless mechanism, which is driven by your inputs coming in time. We would love to listen to you and make sure that in case there are glitches even in the IT arrangement that we have, we'd like to solve it. We would like to have an arrangement where things happen automatically without any human interface. In case we're able to achieve that, nothing like it, we are open to ideas.
Why can't government subsidize at the input level? See, there's a differentiation created between the public and the private sectors at present. When the public sector can claim at every stage the subsidy, the private sector can claim only after completion of the delivery. That's a big differential. And why can't government subsidize at the input level like China does?
We are open to ideas and suggestions. We'll love to have you separately and discuss that. So sorry.
I have a suggestion at a slightly different direction, that if government really wants to boost shipbuilding activity in the country, I think the government intervention is needed to pay more attention to the naval shipbuilding. We have done these studies in the past. Like to like, if you talk of a reasonably large size ship, you of course have been focusing on starting from small ships, starting from tugs and all. But as in a normal you'll find that the commercial ship vis-a-vis a naval ship of the same size, the man days which go into it from the employment generation are at least 10 times. The cost is concerned, it would be at least to the order of 20 times more. And the downside benefits are even more, because naval shipbuilding, we have developed expertise, as you have been highlighting, of design. If I'm able to do design here, I have the capability of incorporating Indian local industrial manufactured items. Whereas in a commercial ships, most of the time, the design, because it is not done in-house in the country, it is imported designs. You want to pay 20% subsidy, which is a taxpayer's hard-earned money, and probably the benefit will go to some outside customer. Whereas we have deficit in the naval shipbuilding. The total capacity is grossly inadequate. Navy's requirements are much more. So even if you do not give any subsidy, the yards would be able to make a decent profit. Unfortunately, because the government intervention has been lacking, some efforts were made at the Navy's behest to get private shipyards also to do naval shipbuilding. It failed because of lack of government intervention, mismanagement in some of the yards. The only yard that remains today in the country is L&T. The others which did a lot of work have all gone down the drain. And you see what a colossal loss of the national assets has taken place. So I would suggest that the government should pay far more attention in this direction. There are ready-made orders lying. You don't have to go beg around. You don't have to subsidize. You don't need indigenous content because this helps the Navy even otherwise, because the local industry is fairly developed. When we talk of 70-80% of content in a naval ship, it's very, very high. Probably other countries, even the developed countries cannot claim because they procure things from many other countries. So that is a direction, I think, which we need to take, which somehow has not caught the attention of the government, and hence we are kind of missing out on that opportunity. We got to start with manpower. We don't have manpower today. Small European nations have number of institutions, and they produce probably naval architects, the naval electric and naval marine engineers in larger number than India does. So hence, if we don't focus on those sides, any of these projects, any of these initiatives will not show you the benefit in the long run. I mean, that's a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you have the experience and the knowledge, but as far as the policy framework is concerned on the defense side, there are a whole host of equipments which have been already identified, which necessarily have to be sourced from Indian sources. Now that is the policy which the government has, and it's for us to be able to have the people of the right kind to be able to get that done in India. And it is veterans like you and us to be able to nurture and build up that system. So anyway, I think this is something on which we can discuss and possibly look at smaller details as we go along. But I'd have to take leave from you, and I'd like to thank you all. And I'm very happy that we have set the discussions going. It is the Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways, but all of people like you who have the experience. And the policy framework is very clear. We got to go big. We got to be able to reach the heights that we all aspire for. And the solution is to work together and to make it happen. I again thank you all very much, and thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to positive.
So just a small question. Any policy on development of hovercrafts? We have a large marshy land along the coast. So developing those waterways will be very, very costly. So we can think about developing the hovercraft which works on the policy of air cushion.
Yeah, we can have some standard designs and so on. Love to have that.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to paucity of time, we would be unable to take further questions today. May I request the audience to kindly share their questions on email to us, and we will forward them to Honorable Secretary. May I now request the audience to kindly reciprocate our gratitude to Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan in our customary manner. May I now request Captain Surit Mehrotra, Captain NA, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Sir, I will not stand long in way of you leaving and also for the rest to go for lunch. It is my pleasant duty to offer formal thanks for the patronage and assistance the NCW and Applied Mechanics Department have received. I take this opportunity to express our gratitude to Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan for the most illuminating, informative and thought-provoking lecture. We are also most grateful to Admiral Deshmukh, who have made time for us and accepted our invitation to be the chief guest for today's function. We are greatly indebted to Professor Angan Banerjee, the director, for his kind patronage and presence. We are also most grateful to the office bearers of CGMET, Professor Sanghi, Professor Prateek Gupta, Professor Sabyasachi Chatterjee, who are the power behind the punch in making this event successful. I extend my heartfelt appreciation for the faculty members and staff of IIT Delhi who have given their wholehearted assistance in making the arrangements for this function. We are indeed thankful to the senior officers of the Indian Navy, both serving and retired, IIT professors, ministry representatives, and industry who have graced this occasion by their presence. We're thankful to Mrs. Global Offshore and Marine Private Limited, our main sponsors, HSL, and our co-sponsors for their contributions and sponsorships for the main function. I also thank the members of the team NCW, the very important ones, Captain Punia, Commander Vikram Singh, Lieutenant Commander Ravi, and Lieutenant Commander Pankaj Mishra. I can have a round of applause for them. We have worked relentlessly to make this function a success. And finally, I'll be failing in my duty if I did not acknowledge the patronage shown by all our distinguished audience who have taken time on a Saturday morning to be with us. Thank you, one and all. Jai Hind, Shanno Varna.